Hook, sometimes the most dangerous opponent comes in the smallest package. When 12-year-old Emma Martinez walked onto the most secure military training facility in America, hardened Navy SEALs laughed at what they saw. What they didn't know was that this quiet girl from rural Texas carried a secret that would shatter every shooting record on the base and force the military's elite warriors to question everything they thought they knew about talent, dedication, and the true meaning of strength. The morning sun cast long shadows across the Naval Special Warfare Command training facility in Coronado, California. Colonel James Harrison adjusted his sunglasses and checked his watch for the third time in 10 minutes. He had better things to do than babysit some publicity stunt dreamed up by the Pentagon's Public Relations Department. "Sir, the vehicle is approaching the main gate," Sergeant Martinez reported, his voice crisp through the radio. Colonel Harrison sighed deeply. In his 28 years of military service, he had seen countless politicians, celebrities, and their spoiled children paraded through his facility for photo opportunities. Each visit disrupted his carefully planned training schedules and forced his elite soldiers to play nice for the cameras. The black SUV rolled to a stop in front of the administration building. Harrison watched as a Pentagon official stepped out, followed by a man in an expensive suit who looked completely out of place among the military personnel. Then came a woman with kind eyes and calloused hands that spoke of hard work. Finally, a small figure emerged from the vehicle. Emma Martinez was 12 years old and barely reached her father's chest. She wore simple jeans, scuffed boots, and a faded blue t-shirt. Her long black hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and she carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone twice her age. As she looked around the facility, her dark eyes took in every detail with the intensity of a trained observer. "That's her?" Colonel Harrison muttered to his aide, Captain Rodriguez. "That's the shooting prodigy we're supposed to be impressed by?" Captain Rodriguez consulted his tablet. According to the briefing, Emma Martinez has been competing in junior shooting competitions since she was 8. She's apparently won every major youth championship in the Southwest region for the past 2 years. Harrison scoffed. "Youth competitions. Probably shooting at paper targets from a comfortable bench rest while daddy cheers from the sidelines. These rich kids and their hobbies." But, as Emma approached, Harrison noticed something that gave him pause. The girl wasn't nervous or overwhelmed by the imposing military facility around her. She didn't gawk at the uniformed personnel or seem intimidated by the serious atmosphere. Instead, she observed everything with a calm, analytical gaze that reminded him of his most seasoned operators. "Colonel Harrison," the Pentagon official said, extending his hand. "Thank you for accommodating this demonstration. This is Richard Martinez, Emma's father, and this is Emma herself." Harrison shook hands with the adults but found himself studying the girl. When Emma stepped forward and offered her small hand, her grip was firm and her eyes met his directly. "Thank you for having me here, Colonel," Emma said. Her voice was steady and polite, but there was something underneath it that Harrison couldn't quite identify. "Well, Miss Martinez," Harrison said, his tone more condescending than he intended, "I hope you're ready for a real challenge. This isn't a county fair shooting gallery." Emma's expression didn't change, but her father's jaw tightened slightly. "Emma understands the serious nature of military marksmanship, Colonel. She's been preparing for this demonstration for weeks." Harrison led the group toward the shooting ranges, passing squads of Navy SEALs engaged in various training exercises. The elite warriors paused in their activities to watch the unusual procession, their expressions ranging from curiosity to barely concealed amusement. "Hey, LT," one SEAL called out to his lieutenant. "Did someone bring their daughter to work today?" The comment drew chuckles from several nearby operators. Emma heard it but showed no reaction, continuing to walk with the same composed stride. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen, one of the few female officers at the facility, approached the group. "Colonel, the demonstration area is prepared according to your specifications." "Excellent," Harrison replied. "Let's see what our young guest can do." The shooting range was unlike anything most civilians had ever seen. Instead of the simple, controlled environment of recreational shooting facilities, this range was designed to test the skills of the world's most elite marksmen. Multiple targets were positioned at varying distances, some stationary, others capable of movement. The shooting positions included prone, sitting, standing, and supported positions that would challenge even experienced shooters. A crowd had gathered to watch the demonstration. Word had spread quickly through the base about the young civilian who claimed she could outshoot Navy SEALs. Some personnel were genuinely curious, others came hoping for entertainment, and a few attended out of professional skepticism. Master Chief Petty Officer Thomas Tank Morrison, a 20-year veteran with more confirmed kills than he cared to remember, shook his head as he watched Emma examine the range setup. "This is gonna be embarrassing," Tank said to his teammate, Chief Petty Officer Mike Reaper Sullivan. "Poor kid doesn't know what she's getting into." Reaper nodded. "Yeah, but look at her old man. You can tell he thinks his little princess is gonna show us something special. Reality's about to hit hard." Colonel Harrison stepped to the center of the range. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're here today to observe a shooting demonstration by Miss Emma Martinez. The course of fire will consist of multiple stations, each designed to test different aspects of marksmanship skill." He gestured toward the first station. "We'll begin with precision shooting from the prone position at targets ranging from 100 to 300 yards. Miss Martinez, are you familiar with the weapons system we'll be using?" Emma nodded toward the rifle rack where several military-grade weapons were displayed. "The M4A1 carbine, sir." "I'm familiar with the platform." Several SEALs exchanged glances. The M4A1 wasn't a civilian weapon, and it was unusual for a 12-year-old to have any experience with military hardware. "Well then," Harrison said, unable to hide his skepticism, "let's begin." Emma approached the rifle rack and selected an M4A1 with the confidence of someone who had handled the weapon before. She checked the chamber, verified the safety, and examined the optics with practiced movements that surprised several observers. "Where did she learn to handle a rifle like that?" whispered Captain Rodriguez to Lieutenant Commander Chen. "I don't know," Chen replied, "but those movements are textbook military." Emma settled into the prone position behind the shooting line. Her small frame seemed almost comical behind the full-size rifle, but as she adjusted her position, something changed. The girl who had walked onto the range disappeared, replaced by someone with the focused intensity of a trained sniper. She adjusted the bipod legs with precise movements, positioned the buttstock against her shoulder, and settled her cheek against the stock with the muscle memory of countless hours of practice. When she looked through the scope, her breathing settled into the controlled rhythm that every marksman knows by heart. "Target, 100 yards, Colonel Harrison announced. Begin when ready." Emma's first shot rang out across the range. Through his spotting scope, Harrison watched the bullet strike dead center of the target. He frowned and adjusted his scope, certain he had made an error. "Center X ring," called out the range safety officer. Emma cycled the bolt smoothly and fired again. Then, again. 5 shots in rapid succession, each one placed with mechanical precision in the center of the target. The murmurs from the assembled personnel grew louder. This wasn't beginner's luck or a fluke. This was the kind of shooting they expected from their most experienced snipers. "Target, 200 yards, Harrison called out, his voice less certain than before. Emma adjusted her scope with smooth, practiced movements and settled back into position. Again, 5 shots flew downrange with the same devastating precision. The spotting scope confirmed what everyone was beginning to suspect: this 12-year-old girl was shooting better than most of their trained operators. Tank Morrison lowered his binoculars and looked at Reaper with a confused expression. "What the hell is happening here?" "I don't know," Reaper replied, "but that kid just shot a group I couldn't match on my best day." Colonel Harrison found himself in unfamiliar territory. In nearly 3 decades of military service, he had developed an instinct for reading people and situations. Everything about Emma Martinez defied his expectations and experience. "Target, 300 yards, he announced, his voice now carrying a note of genuine interest. Emma made her scope adjustments with the methodical precision of a trained sniper. The 300-yard target was challenging even for experienced marksmen, requiring compensation for wind drift, bullet drop, and environmental conditions. She fired her 5-shot string with the same unhurried precision as before. When the range safety officer called out 5 shots, X-ring, a hush fell over the assembled crowd. Lieutenant Commander Chen approached Colonel Harrison. "Sir, I've been shooting competitively for 15 years, and I've never seen anyone shoot like that. Especially not at that age." Harrison was beginning to realize that his assumptions about Emma Martinez might have been seriously flawed. "What do you know about her background?" "Only what was in the briefing," Chen replied. "Rural Texas, daughter of a rancher, started shooting at age 8. But, sir, that's not recreational shooting. That's advanced military marksmanship. Emma stood up from the firing line and saved her weapon with the same professional movements she had displayed throughout the demonstration. She turned to face Colonel Harrison, her expression unchanged despite the murmurs of amazement from the crowd around her. "How was that, Colonel?" she asked simply. Harrison studied her face, looking for any sign of smugness or pride. He found none. Emma Martinez had just outshot some of his best marksmen, and she acted as if it was the most natural thing in the world. Impressive, Harrison admitted grudgingly. But precision shooting from a supported position is just one aspect of combat marksmanship. Let's see how you handle some real challenges. As they moved to the next station, Harrison found himself reconsidering everything he thought he knew about the young visitor. The girl walking beside him wasn't the pampered civilian he had expected. There was something in her demeanor, in the way she carried herself and handled weapons, that spoke of serious training and natural talent. But what Harrison didn't yet understand was that Emma Martinez carried more than just exceptional shooting skills. Her story involved tragedy, determination, and a level of dedication that had forged her into something far beyond a typical young competitor. The real demonstration was just beginning, and, before the day was over, Emma would force every person on that base to question their assumptions about age, ability, and what it truly meant to be a warrior. The colonel's skeptical smile was about to be replaced by something else entirely, respect born from witnessing greatness in its purest form. As they approached the next challenge, Master Chief Morrison pulled Captain Rodriguez aside. "Cap, I need to know more about this kid. That wasn't lucky shooting. That was world-class marksmanship." Rodriguez nodded grimly. "I'll make some calls. But, Tank, I have a feeling we're about to learn that there's a lot more to Emma Martinez than anyone told us." The morning sun climbed higher over the naval facility, but none of the assembled personnel were thinking about the weather. They were all focused on the small figure in worn jeans and scuffed boots who had just demonstrated shooting skills that rivaled their own elite abilities. Emma Martinez had fired her first shots at the most challenging military facility in America. But she was just getting started, and no one yet understood the depth of skill and determination they were about to witness. The colonel's mockery was about to transform into something far different, and the Navy SEALs who had gathered expecting entertainment were about to receive an education in humility and respect. The second station presented a completely different challenge from the precision shooting that had just amazed the assembled crowd. Here, mechanical targets moved at various speeds across different ranges, simulating the kind of dynamic shooting scenarios that Navy SEALs faced in real combat situations. Colonel Harrison gestured toward the complex target system with renewed interest. His earlier dismissive attitude had been replaced by genuine curiosity about Emma's capabilities. "This station tests reactive shooting skills," he explained to Emma and her father. "The targets appear at random intervals and move at different speeds. You'll have limited time to acquire, aim, and engage each target before it disappears." Emma studied the range layout with the same analytical attention she had shown earlier. Multiple target mechanisms were positioned at distances ranging from 50 to 200 yards. Some targets moved laterally across her field of vision, others appeared and disappeared behind cover, and a few followed unpredictable patterns designed to challenge even experienced combat shooters. Master Chief Morrison stepped forward, his earlier skepticism now mixed with professional respect. "Miss Martinez, this particular course was designed by our sniper training unit. Our average SEAL scores around 70% hit rate on first attempt." Emma nodded politely but said nothing. She had moved into what her father recognized as her complete focus mode. When Emma prepared for a challenging shoot, she became intensely quiet and seemed to tune out everything except the task at hand. Lieutenant Commander Chen activated the target system control panel. The sequence runs for 90 seconds. Targets will appear randomly, and each target remains visible for a maximum of 8 seconds. "Miss Martinez, are you ready?" "Ready," Emma replied, settling into a standing shooting position with her M4A1. The first target popped up at 75 yards, moving slowly from left to right. Emma's rifle snapped to her shoulder with fluid speed, and she fired almost instantly. The target dropped, clearly hit. Before the assembled crowd could react, a second target appeared at 120 yards, moving much faster in the opposite direction. Emma's body pivoted smoothly as she tracked the target, leading it perfectly before squeezing the trigger. Another hit. What followed was a display of reactive shooting that left experienced military personnel speechless. Target after target appeared at various distances and speeds, and Emma engaged each one with mechanical precision. Her movements were economical and smooth, without wasted motion or hesitation. Captain Rodriguez found himself timing Emma's target acquisition and engagement. From target appearance to shot fired, she was consistently achieving sub-2-second times, even on the most challenging moving targets. "Jesus," whispered Chief Petty Officer Sullivan. "She's faster than our instructors." A particularly challenging sequence began with 3 targets appearing simultaneously at different ranges. Most shooters would be forced to prioritize and accept missing at least one target. Emma engaged the nearest target first, cycled her rifle, and smoothly transitioned to the middle target, then to the farthest one. All 3 dropped in sequence. The crowd of Navy SEALs had grown completely silent. They were witnessing shooting skills that exceeded their own capabilities, demonstrated by someone who looked like she should be in 7th grade rather than on a military firing range. When the 90-second sequence ended, Lieutenant Commander Chin checked the electronic scoring system twice before announcing the results. Perfect score. 100% hit rate with an average engagement time of 1.7 seconds. Colonel Harrison stared at the scoring display, then at Emma, who was calmly safing her rifle as if she had just completed a routine training exercise. "Miss Martinez," Harrison said slowly, "in 15 years of running this particular course, no one has achieved a perfect score on their first attempt. Most of our experienced snipers require multiple tries to score above 90%. Emma's father, Richard Martinez, had remained quietly in the background throughout the demonstration. Now he stepped forward with a slight smile. "Emma has been practicing reactive shooting since she was 9, he said. "We have a similar setup on our ranch, though not quite as sophisticated as this one." Tank Morrison approached Richard with undisguised curiosity. "Mr. Martinez, what exactly is your background? Because your daughter isn't shooting like a hobby competitor. She's shooting like someone with serious tactical training." Richard Martinez was quiet for a long moment, considering how much to reveal. "I'm retired military, Master Chief. I did 4 tours in Afghanistan as a Marine sniper instructor. When Emma showed interest in shooting, I may have been more thorough in my instruction than most fathers would be." This revelation caused several SEALs to exchange meaningful looks. A Marine sniper instructor would have access to advanced training techniques and equipment that went far beyond civilian shooting sports. "But, sir," Captain Rodriguez interjected, "even with expert instruction, this level of skill in someone so young is extraordinary. This represents thousands of hours of practice and natural ability that's almost unprecedented." Emma had been listening to the conversation while methodically cleaning her rifle. Now she looked up with serious eyes that seemed far older than her 12 years. "I practice 4 hours every day," she said simply. "More on weekends and during school breaks." Lieutenant Commander Chin calculated quickly in her head. 4 hours a day for 4 years would be nearly 6,000 hours of practice. That's more training time than some of our operators accumulate in their entire careers. Colonel Harrison found himself facing a situation he had never encountered before. Everything about Emma Martinez challenged his understanding of what was possible for someone her age. Her shooting skills were extraordinary, but equally impressive was her mental composure under pressure and her mature approach to handling weapons and following safety protocols. "Well then," Harrison said, "let's see how you handle close-quarters combat scenarios." The third station was designed to simulate urban combat environments. Targets were positioned behind cover at various distances, requiring shooters to quickly identify threats while avoiding civilian targets. This type of scenario required not just marksmanship skills but tactical thinking and split-second decision-making. Emma studied the setup carefully. Unlike the previous stations, this challenge included targets representing both hostile and non-hostile personnel. Successfully completing the course required shooting accuracy combined with proper target identification under time pressure. "The rules are simple," explained Sergeant First Class James Wright, the course instructor. "Engage all hostile targets while avoiding any civilian targets. You'll have 2 minutes to clear the entire scenario." Emma nodded and checked her rifle magazine. She had been firing for nearly an hour and had yet to show any signs of fatigue or decreased concentration. "Begin when ready," Sergeant Wright announced. Emma moved into the course with surprising tactical awareness for someone with no formal military training. She used available cover effectively, advanced through the scenario with proper movement techniques, and engaged targets from stable shooting positions. The first section required shooting around barricades at targets positioned at various heights and distances. Emma's shots were quick and accurate, with each target dropping immediately upon engagement. But the real test came in the second section, where civilian and hostile targets were intermixed. A wrong decision here could represent tragic consequences in real combat situations. Emma paused at the entrance to this section, studying the partially visible targets ahead. When she moved forward, her decision-making was flawless. She engaged hostile targets with quick, precise shots while carefully avoiding any civilian figures. The watching SEALs found themselves analyzing Emma's technique with professional interest. Her movement patterns, use of cover, and target prioritization demonstrated an understanding of combat principles that typically required extensive tactical training. Where did she learn urban movement techniques? Master Chief Morrison asked Richard Martinez. I may have shared some of my tactical knowledge along with marksmanship instruction, Richard replied carefully. Emma has always been interested in the complete picture, not just shooting skills. As Emma completed the final section of the course, it became clear that her performance was going to be exceptional. She had engaged every hostile target with single, well-placed shots while completely avoiding any civilian targets. Time, called Sergeant Wright. Course complete with perfect target identification and 100% hit rate. The assembled crowd was no longer just impressed, they were beginning to understand that they were witnessing something truly extraordinary. Emma Martinez wasn't just a talented young shooter, she was demonstrating skills that rivaled those of their most experienced operators. Colonel Harrison approached Emma as she cleared her rifle and prepared for the next challenge. Miss Martinez, I owe you an apology. I made assumptions about your abilities based on your age, and I was completely wrong. Emma looked up at the colonel with the same direct gaze she had shown when they first met. Thank you, sir. But I understand why you were skeptical. Most people my age aren't interested in this kind of shooting. What got you interested? Asked Lieutenant Commander Chen. Emma was quiet for a moment, and something changed in her expression. For the first time since arriving at the facility, she looked her age, vulnerable and thoughtful. My grandfather taught me to shoot when I was little, she said softly. He was a Marine in Vietnam. He always said that if someone takes the time to learn something properly, they should do it as well as they possibly can. Richard Martinez's expression tightened slightly, and several of the SEALs noticed the reaction. There was clearly more to Emma's story, something that drove her extraordinary dedication to mastering these skills. But, before anyone could ask follow-up questions, Colonel Harrison announced the next challenge. The fourth station tests long-range precision under environmental stress. This is where we separate good shooters from exceptional ones. As the group moved toward the long-range shooting area, the mood had completely changed from the beginning of the demonstration. No one was joking about the young girl's presence anymore. Instead, hardened military professionals were quietly discussing what they had witnessed and speculating about what Emma might demonstrate next. Master Chief Morrison fell into step beside Captain Rodriguez. Cap, I've been in this business for 20 years, and I've never seen anything like this. That kid is shooting better than operators with a decade of experience. I know, Rodriguez replied. And I get the feeling we haven't seen everything yet. Emma walked ahead of them, focused and composed as she had been throughout the entire demonstration. But those who looked closely could see something else in her demeanor now, a sense of purpose that went beyond simple competitive drive. She was shooting not just to prove her abilities, but to honor something or someone important to her. The watching professionals were beginning to understand that Emma Martinez carried more than exceptional skill. She carried the weight of expectations and memories that drove her to achieve standards far beyond her years. The morning was advancing, and the most challenging test still lay ahead. But Emma had already accomplished something significant. She had earned the complete respect of some of America's most elite warriors, and she had done it through pure demonstration of skill and character. The colonel's initial mockery had been replaced by genuine admiration, and the Navy SEALs who had gathered for entertainment were now watching with the focused attention of professionals observing a master at work. Emma Martinez was rewriting their understanding of what was possible, one perfect shot at a time. The long-range shooting station was positioned on an elevated platform overlooking the Pacific Ocean. Here, environmental factors like wind, humidity, and temperature variations created conditions that challenged even the most experienced snipers. The targets were positioned at distances ranging from 400 to 800 yards, requiring precise calculations and expert weapon handling. Colonel Harrison led Emma up the stairs to the shooting platform, followed by a growing crowd of Navy personnel who had abandoned their regular duties to witness the continuing demonstration. Word had spread throughout the base that something extraordinary was happening at the shooting range. Master Chief Morrison was setting up spotting equipment when he paused to address Richard Martinez. "Mr. Martinez, I hope you don't mind me asking, but your daughter's skills go way beyond what most military personnel achieve. What's her ultimate goal with all this training?" Richard Martinez looked out over the ocean before answering. "Emma wants to serve her country someday. She believes that if she's going to ask others to trust her with their lives, she needs to be better than good. She needs to be exceptional." This statement resonated deeply with the assembled SEALs, who understood the weight of responsibility that came with military service in combat situations. Lieutenant Commander Chen was studying meteorological readings on her tablet. Current conditions show variable winds from the southwest at 8 to 12 knots, temperature 72 degrees, humidity 60%. These aren't ideal conditions for precision long-range shooting. Emma examined the wind flags positioned at various points downrange, watching how they moved and noting the different wind patterns at various distances. Her father had taught her to read environmental conditions as carefully as she read her rifle sights. "The wind's going to be tricky," she said to Colonel Harrison. "It looks like there's a crosswind component that varies with distance." Harrison nodded approvingly. "That's exactly right. Most shooters struggle with the changing wind conditions we get here. The ocean creates some unique challenges." Emma selected a different rifle for the long-range work, a bolt-action precision rifle equipped with a high-powered scope. She handled the weapon with the same confident familiarity she had shown with the M4A1, checking the action, examining the scope settings, and loading the magazine with careful attention to each round. Captain Rodriguez was impressed by Emma's methodical preparation. "She's following the exact same pre-shooting routine our sniper instructors teach. Someone taught her proper fundamentals." As Emma settled into the prone shooting position behind the precision rifle, her entire demeanor shifted. The composed 12-year-old disappeared, replaced by someone with the focused intensity of a trained sniper. She adjusted her position with minute precision, settled the rifle into perfect alignment, and began her breathing routine. "Target, 400 yards, announced Sergeant Wright, who was serving as range controller. Through her scope, Emma studied the target and the wind indicators between her position and the target. She made scope adjustments to compensate for the range and environmental conditions, then settled into her final shooting position. Her first shot rang out across the range. Through their spotting scopes, the observers watched the bullet impact dead center of the target. Center X ring, called the range safety officer. But what impressed the watching professionals wasn't just the accuracy of the shot. It was Emma's systematic approach to making the necessary adjustments and her complete control under pressure. "Target, 500 yards, Wright called." Emma made new calculations for the increased range and changing wind conditions. She adjusted her scope settings and fired again. Another perfect hit. As the range increased to 600 and then 700 yards, the shooting became exponentially more difficult. At these distances, small errors in reading environmental conditions or rifle handling were magnified into significant misses. Master Chief Morrison, who had been observing through high-powered spotting equipment, approached Colonel Harrison with a concerned expression. "Sir, she's not just hitting these targets. She's hitting them with precision that rivals our best sniper instructors. At 700 yards in these wind conditions, that's world-class shooting." Emma continued to demonstrate the same methodical precision at each range. She read the wind conditions carefully, made appropriate scope adjustments, and delivered shots that consistently found the center of each target. When Sergeant Wright announced the final target at 800 yards, several experienced snipers in the crowd shook their heads. At this distance, with variable wind conditions, even expert marksmen expected to struggle. Emma studied the target through her scope for nearly a full minute, reading wind indicators at multiple points along the bullet's path. She made careful adjustments to her scope and settled into her final shooting position. The shot seemed to hang in the air longer than the others, and everyone held their breath waiting for the impact. When the bullet struck the target, the spotting scope revealed another perfect hit. 800 yards, center X ring, the range safety officer announced to a crowd that had grown completely silent. Colonel Harrison lowered his binoculars and stared at Emma, who was calmly clearing her rifle and preparing to leave the shooting position. In his entire military career, he had never witnessed shooting of this caliber from anyone, let alone a 12-year-old girl. "Miss Martinez," he said, his voice carrying new respect, "what you just accomplished is beyond exceptional. You've demonstrated shooting skills that exceed those of our most experienced snipers." Emma looked up from securing her rifle. "Thank you, Colonel. My grandfather always said that respect for the weapon and dedication to practice were the foundation of good shooting." Lieutenant Commander Chen approached with her tablet showing the electronic scoring data. "Emma, I've been analyzing your performance across all stations. Your accuracy percentage is 100%, your average shot times are faster than our instructors, and your long-range precision is literally off our measurement scales." The assembled crowd of Navy SEALs was processing what they had witnessed with a mixture of amazement and professional respect. These were warriors who had earned their positions through grueling training and combat experience, and they recognized exceptional skill when they saw it. But the demonstration was far from over. Colonel Harrison had one more challenge planned, something he had been hesitant to include because of Emma's age. "Miss Martinez," he said carefully, "we have one final station that tests shooting under extreme stress conditions. It's designed to simulate the pressure and physical demands of real combat situations. I'm not sure it's appropriate for someone your age." Emma's father stepped forward. "What does the stress test involve?" "Physical challenges combined with precision shooting," Harrison explained. "Candidates are required to complete obstacle courses, carry heavy equipment, and then engage targets while dealing with fatigue and elevated heart rate. It's what we use to evaluate our special operations candidates." Richard Martinez looked at his daughter. "Emma, it's your choice. You've already proven everything you need to prove." Emma considered the offer seriously. She had trained for this moment for years, and she knew that backing down now would leave questions about her capabilities under real pressure. "I'd like to try it," she said simply. Colonel Harrison studied her determined expression and made a decision. "Very well. But we'll modify the physical challenges to be age-appropriate while maintaining the shooting standards." As they moved toward the final station, Master Chief Morrison fell into step beside Emma. "Miss Martinez, can I ask you something? What drives you to push yourself this hard? Most kids your age are thinking about video games and social media." Emma was quiet for a moment, and when she spoke, her voice carried a maturity that seemed far beyond her years. "My grandfather was killed in action when my father was my age. He died protecting his unit from enemy fire. Dad says Grandpa was the best shot in his company, but it wasn't enough that day." She paused, watching the SEALs training in the distance. "I figured if I'm going to serve someday, I need to be better than just good enough. I need to be so good that when someone's counting on me, I won't let them down." This revelation hit the assembled warriors like a physical blow. They understood dedication driven by loss and the weight of responsibility for others' lives. Emma Martinez wasn't just showing off her skills, she was preparing for a lifetime of service motivated by family sacrifice. Tank Morrison looked at his teammates with new understanding. "She's not here to impress us. She's here to prove she's ready to carry on her family's tradition of service." As they approached the stress test station, the crowd of observers had grown to include personnel from throughout the base. Word had spread that something unprecedented was happening at the shooting range, and off-duty personnel were arriving to witness the conclusion of Emma's demonstration. The final challenge would test everything Emma had learned and trained for. It would push her to her physical and mental limits while requiring her to maintain the precise shooting skills she had demonstrated throughout the day. Colonel Harrison looked at the determined young woman standing before him and realized that his initial skepticism had been completely misplaced. Emma Martinez wasn't a pampered civilian seeking attention, she was a dedicated young person preparing for a life of service, driven by family tradition and personal conviction. The mockery and doubt from earlier in the day had been replaced by something else entirely, recognition that they were in the presence of someone truly special, someone who represented the best of what military service could produce when natural talent met unwavering dedication. The final test would determine whether Emma's exceptional shooting skills could be maintained under the stress conditions that define real combat situations. For the watching Navy SEALs, the answer to that question would determine whether they were simply witnessing impressive target shooting or observing the emergence of a future warrior of extraordinary capabilities. Emma checked her equipment one final time and looked toward the stress test course was unlike anything most people would ever encounter. Designed to simulate the physical and mental challenges of real combat situations, it pushed candidates to their absolute limits while requiring them to maintain precise shooting skills under extreme pressure. Colonel Harrison led Emma to the starting line where a series of obstacles, equipment, and shooting stations created a challenging circuit that would test every aspect of her training. "The course works like this," Harrison explained. "You'll carry a 40-pound pack through a series of physical challenges, including obstacle navigation, a 200-yard sprint, and equipment handling under time pressure. At the end of each section, you'll engage targets that require the same precision you've demonstrated today, but while dealing with fatigue, elevated heart rate, and stress." Emma looked at the 40-pound pack with concern. Her small frame made the weight particularly challenging, but she nodded her acceptance of the requirements. Lieutenant Commander Chen approached with a modified equipment load. "We've adjusted the pack weight to 30 pounds to account for your size, but maintained the same relative physical challenge." Emma appreciated the accommodation but shook her head. "If this is supposed to simulate real conditions, I should carry the same weight anyone else would carry." Master Chief Morrison admired her determination but was practical about the situation. "Miss Martinez, that pack represents ammunition, water, and survival gear that would be adjusted for any operator's physical capabilities. We're not trying to make this easier, just appropriate." Emma considered this logic and accepted the modified pack. She adjusted the straps and secured the equipment with practiced movements that suggested familiarity with military gear. The first obstacle was a rope climb followed by a low crawl under wire obstacles. Emma attacked these challenges with surprising strength and agility for her size. She scaled the rope with efficient technique and navigated the crawling section without hesitation. But it was after the first obstacles that the real test began. Emma's heart rate was elevated and she was breathing hard when she reached the first shooting station. 5 targets, distances from 100 to 300 yards, announced Sergeant Wright. "Engage when ready." Emma dropped into the prone position behind her rifle, and the watching crowd could see her struggle to control her breathing and heart rate. The physical exertion was affecting her normally perfect shooting stance. Her first shot missed the center of the target, hitting in the outer rings. Several observers exchanged worried looks, thinking that the stress was finally showing its effects on Emma's performance. But Emma had trained for exactly this situation. On the ranch with her father, she had practiced shooting after running, carrying heavy loads, and dealing with fatigue. She knew how to recover her shooting position even when her body was under stress. She took an extra moment to control her breathing and settle into proper position. Her second shot found the center of the target. The remaining shots followed with increasing precision as Emma adapted to shooting under physical stress. "Good adaptation," Colonel Harrison observed to Richard Martinez. "She knows how to adjust her technique when conditions change." The second section of the course required Emma to carry a simulated wounded teammate 30 yards before reaching the next shooting station. The wounded teammate was represented by a weighted dummy that she had to drag while maintaining proper safety protocols. Emma struggled with the weight but refused to quit. She used proper lifting techniques and steady progress to move the dummy to the required position, arriving at the shooting station exhausted but determined. This time the targets were moving, adding complexity to an already challenging situation. Emma had to engage 5 moving targets while dealing with fatigue and the stress of the physical challenges. Her shooting was slower than during the earlier demonstrations, but her accuracy remained exceptional. She tracked each moving target carefully and delivered precise shots despite her elevated heart rate and physical exhaustion. Captain Rodriguez was taking notes on Emma's performance for the official report. "Sir, she's maintaining better than 90% accuracy even under significant physical stress. Most of our candidates see their accuracy drop to 70% or lower during this test." The third section required Emma to navigate a series of barriers while carrying her rifle and pack, simulating movement through urban terrain. She had to climb walls, crawl through tight spaces, and maintain weapon security throughout the obstacles. Emma's small size actually became an advantage during this section. She moved through the tight spaces more easily than larger candidates would, and her agility helped her navigate the climbing obstacles efficiently. But the final shooting station would be the ultimate test. After completing all physical challenges, Emma would be required to engage targets at various distances while dealing with maximum fatigue and stress. As Emma approached the final shooting position, everyone present could see the physical toll the course had taken. She was breathing hard, sweating, and clearly exhausted from the demanding physical challenges.
Final station, Sergeant Wright announced.
10 targets at ranges from 50 to 400 yards, including both stationary and moving targets.
You have 90 seconds to engage all targets.
Emma dropped into position behind her rifle, and the watching crowd could see her hands shaking slightly from fatigue. This was the moment that would determine whether her exceptional shooting skills could be maintained under the stress conditions that define real combat situations. She took extra time to steady her position and control her breathing. The first target appeared at 100 yards, and Emma's shot found the center despite her physical condition. As the sequence continued, something remarkable happened.
Despite her fatigue, Emma's shooting began to improve.
Her movements became more controlled, her target acquisition faster, and her shots more precise.
Master Chief Morrison watched through his spotting scope with growing amazement.
She's actually getting better as the sequence progresses. She's learning to shoot through the stress instead of being defeated by it.
Target after target fell to Emma's precise shooting.
Moving targets, long-range shots, quick transition drills, she handled each challenge with increasing confidence and accuracy. When the final target dropped with 15 seconds remaining in the time limit, the assembled crowd erupted in spontaneous applause. Emma had completed the most challenging test the Navy SEALs could devise, and she had done it with performance that exceeded most of their trained operators. Colonel Harrison approached Emma as she safed her rifle and prepared to leave the shooting position. "Miss Martinez, in my 30 years of military service, I have never seen anyone, at any age, complete this course with that level of performance." Emma looked up at the colonel, her young face flushed with exhaustion but showing the satisfaction of a job well done.
"Thank you, sir.
That was challenging, but my father always taught me that the real test comes when you're tired and stressed."
Lieutenant Commander Chen was studying the electronic scoring system with disbelief. "Emma, your accuracy rate for the entire stress course was 96%. Our average SEAL candidate scores around 65% on first attempt."
The implications of this performance were staggering. Emma hadn't just demonstrated exceptional shooting skills, she had proven that those skills remained intact under the kind of physical and mental stress that defined real combat operations. Richard Martinez approached his daughter with obvious pride.
"How do you feel, sweetheart?"
"Tired," Emma admitted with a small smile, "but good.
I think Grandpa would have been proud of how I handled that."
This reference to her grandfather brought the story full circle for the watching SEALs. They understood now that Emma's extraordinary dedication was driven by something deeper than competitive spirit or personal achievement. She was carrying forward a family tradition of military service, honoring the memory of a grandfather who had sacrificed his life for his fellow Marines. Master Chief Morrison approached Emma with the respect he would show to any exceptional operator.
"Miss Martinez, I owe you an apology. When you arrived this morning, I thought you were just another civilian looking for attention. I was wrong.
You've demonstrated skills and character that would be exceptional in anyone, regardless of age or experience."
Tank Morrison's teammate, Chief Petty Officer Sullivan, nodded in agreement.
"Emma, I've been through this course 15 times, and I've never shot it as well as you just did. You've earned the respect of every operator on this base."
Colonel Harrison called for attention from the assembled crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen, what we've witnessed today is extraordinary. Miss Martinez has demonstrated shooting skills and mental toughness that exceed our highest standards.
She has earned our respect and admiration." The applause that followed was genuine and heartfelt. These were professionals who understood the significance of what they had observed, and they were acknowledging exceptional achievement when they saw it. But Emma's day wasn't quite finished. Colonel Harrison had one more surprise in store, something that would mark this demonstration as a truly historic event.
"Miss Martinez," he said, "it's traditional for exceptional performances to be recognized in our record books. Your shooting scores today represent new facility records in every category we tested." He gestured toward a display board where the previous shooting records were posted.
Emma's name was being added to the top of every category, replacing records that had been held by experienced Navy SEAL snipers.
Emma stared at the record board with amazement.
She had come to the facility hoping to demonstrate her skills and earn some respect. She never imagined that her performance would be historic. "Sir," she said quietly, "I'm honored to have my name up there with those accomplished operators." Colonel Harrison studied the determined young woman standing before him and made a decision that would have lasting implications.
Miss Martinez, I want to make you an offer.
When you're old enough to serve, I want you to consider joining our special operations community. With your skills and dedication, you could become one of the finest operators this country has ever produced."
Emma's eyes widened at this unexpected recognition.
"Sir, that would be an incredible honor."
"The honor would be ours," Harrison replied. "Warriors like you are exactly what this country needs."
As the demonstration concluded and the crowd began to disperse, Emma found herself surrounded by Navy SEALs who wanted to shake her hand and express their admiration for her performance. These were some of America's most elite warriors, and they were treating a 12-year-old girl with the same respect they would show to a decorated veteran. Emma had earned their recognition not through politics or publicity, but through pure demonstration of skill and character. The day that had begun with Colonel Harrison's mockery and skepticism had ended with unprecedented respect and recognition. Emma Martinez had proven that exceptional ability and dedication could transcend age, size, and conventional expectations. As she prepared to leave the facility, Emma carried with her something more valuable than any trophy or recognition, the knowledge that she had honored her grandfather's memory and demonstrated that she was ready to carry forward her family's tradition of military service. The young girl who had walked onto the base that morning had left as someone who had earned a place among America's finest warriors, not through privilege or politics, but through sheer excellence and unwavering dedication to the highest standards of military service. The stress course with the same focused determination she had shown throughout the day. She was ready for the ultimate challenge, and everyone present sensed that something significant was about to happen. The 12-year-old girl who had walked onto the base that morning as an unknown quantity was about to complete a transformation that would leave lasting impressions on some of America's most elite military personnel. 6 months after Emma Martinez's historic demonstration at the Naval Special Warfare Command facility, the ripple effects of that extraordinary day continued to be felt throughout the military community. Her performance had become legend among special operations personnel, and her name was spoken with the same respect reserved for the most decorated veterans. Colonel Harrison found himself thinking about Emma regularly as he reviewed the performance records that still bore her name at the top of every category. No one had come close to matching her scores, despite numerous attempts by experienced operators who had been motivated by her example. The story of the 12-year-old girl who had outshot Navy SEALs had spread far beyond the naval facility. Military training commands across all branches had requested copies of the performance videos, studying Emma's techniques and trying to understand how someone so young had achieved such exceptional capabilities. At the ranch in rural Texas, Emma continued her daily training routine with the same dedication she had shown for years. But now her practice sessions carried additional weight. She knew that military personnel around the country were watching her progress and that her future performance would be measured against the standard she had set. Richard Martinez watched his daughter practice with mixed emotions. Pride at her achievements was tempered by concern about the attention and expectations that now surrounded her. Emma had handled the recognition with remarkable maturity, but she was still a 12-year-old girl dealing with pressures that most adults would find overwhelming.
"How are you feeling about everything that's happened?" Richard asked Emma as they cleaned rifles after a morning training session. Emma considered the question carefully before answering.
"It's exciting that people recognize my abilities, but it's also scary.
I feel like I have to prove myself over and over again." "You've already proven everything you need to prove," Richard replied.
"Your grandfather would be incredibly proud of what you've accomplished."
"I hope so," Emma said softly. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm living up to his legacy or just trying to fill a hole that can never really be filled." This conversation revealed the emotional complexity underlying Emma's exceptional dedication.
Her drive to excel was motivated by love and loss, by a desire to honor family tradition while forging her own path toward military service.
Meanwhile, at the naval facility in Coronado, Colonel Harrison was implementing changes to the training programs based on observations from Emma's demonstration.
Her systematic approach to shooting fundamentals and her ability to maintain accuracy under stress had provided insights that were improving instruction for real military personnel. Master Chief Morrison had become an unlikely advocate for youth shooting programs, arguing that Emma's example proved that exceptional skills could be developed at a young age with proper instruction and dedication. "That girl showed us that we've been thinking too small," Morrison explained to a gathering of military instructors. "If someone her age can achieve that level of capability, imagine what we could accomplish with our adult candidates if we raised our standards and improved our methods." The demonstration had also sparked discussions about the role of family military traditions in developing future service members. Emma's connection to her grandfather's service had provided motivation that went beyond personal achievement, creating a sense of purpose that sustained her through years of demanding training. Lieutenant Commander Chen had written a detailed analysis of Emma's performance that became required reading at several military training facilities. Her report emphasized not just the exceptional shooting skills, but Emma's mental preparation, equipment handling, and ability to perform under pressure. The Martinez demonstration proved that excellence in military skills isn't limited by age, size, or conventional expectations, Chen wrote. What matters is dedication to proper fundamentals, systematic practice, and mental toughness developed through challenging training. Back in Texas, Emma was dealing with new challenges as word of her abilities spread through her local community. Shooting sports organizations were inviting her to competitions, military academies were expressing interest in her future plans, and media outlets were requesting interviews about her remarkable achievements. But Emma's focus remained on her training and her long-term goal of military service. She had added new elements to her daily routine, including physical fitness programs designed to prepare her for the demands of military training and academic studies focused on military history and tactics. "I don't want to be famous for shooting," Emma explained to her father. "I want to be remembered for serving others and making a difference when it matters."
This mature perspective impressed everyone who met Emma.
Despite the attention and recognition she had received, she maintained focus on her ultimate goal of military service driven by duty rather than personal glory. Colonel Harrison made several trips to Texas over the following months, not in any official capacity, but as someone who had been profoundly impressed by Emma's character and wanted to support her development. During these visits, he saw firsthand the family environment and training methods that had produced such exceptional results. "What strikes me most about Emma isn't just her shooting ability," Harrison told Richard Martinez during one visit. "It's her understanding of why those skills matter. She connects marksmanship to the larger purpose of military service in a way that many adult candidates struggle to grasp." Richard appreciated the colonel's continued interest in Emma's development.
"She's always understood that the shooting is just a tool.
The real purpose is being prepared to serve others when they need someone they can count on." This understanding of service over personal achievement had become Emma's defining characteristic. As she continued to develop her skills and prepare for her future military career, she consistently focused on the responsibilities that would come with her abilities rather than the recognition they brought. The story of Emma's demonstration had also inspired other young people to pursue military careers with enhanced dedication and preparation. Youth shooting programs around the country reported increased enrollment, with many participants citing Emma's example as motivation for their own training efforts. Several military families reached out to the Martinez family, sharing stories of how Emma's achievement had inspired their own children to pursue excellence in preparation for military service. These connections created a community of young people dedicated to upholding the highest standards of military preparation and character. As Emma approached her 13th birthday, she reflected on the changes that had occurred since her demonstration at the naval facility. The recognition and attention had been gratifying, but what mattered most to her was knowing that she was prepared to carry forward her family's tradition of military service. "I used to practice because I wanted to honor Grandpa's memory," Emma told her father. "Now I practice because I want to be worthy of the trust that others place in me." This evolution in Emma's motivation showed her growing maturity and understanding of the responsibilities that came with exceptional abilities. She was developing not just as a marksman, but as a future leader who understood that true strength came from serving others rather than personal achievement. Colonel Harrison's final official report on Emma's demonstration concluded with a recommendation that would have significant implications for military recruitment and training programs. The Martinez case demonstrates that exceptional military capability can be developed through proper training, family support, and dedication to service ideals, he wrote. "We recommend implementing programs to identify and develop similar potential in young people who show both aptitude and character suitable for future military service." This recommendation led to the establishment of youth development programs at several military installations, designed to identify and nurture young people who showed both ability and dedication suitable for future military careers. Emma's legacy was extending beyond her individual achievement to influence how the military thought about developing future service members. Her demonstration had proven that exceptional standards could be achieved by anyone willing to dedicate themselves to proper training and service ideals. As she continued her training in Texas, Emma carried the knowledge that her efforts were inspiring others and contributing to the strength of the military community she hoped to join. The little girl who had walked onto the naval facility 6 months earlier had become a symbol of what was possible when talent met dedication and purpose. The mockery and skepticism that had greeted Emma's arrival at the facility had been replaced by lasting respect and admiration. She had proven that excellence recognized no boundaries of age or convention, and that true military spirit could emerge from the most unexpected places. Emma Martinez had not just set shooting records, she had demonstrated the power of dedication, family tradition, and service ideals to produce capabilities that exceeded everyone's expectations. Her story had become part of military lore, inspiring future generations of service members to pursue their own excellence in service to others. The colonel who had initially mocked her request had become one of her strongest supporters, and the Navy SEALs who had gathered for entertainment had witnessed something that changed their understanding of what was possible when someone truly dedicated themselves to military excellence. Emma's journey was far from over, but she had already achieved something remarkable. She had proven that exceptional military capability could emerge from unexpected places and inspire others to pursue their own excellence in service to their country and fellow citizens.